Welcome to a brand new episode of the Bold Take Podcast, another March Madness edition. I'm Austin Wader. You already know the man next to me rocking just a plain white shirt. I can't tell if it's anything. Oh, the Final Four shirt. There we
Final
go.
Four from when I
There
was
we
trapped
go.
in Louisville.
It's the one you were talking about again for last week. I'm glad you
Yes,
found it. I'm
I
glad.
found it.
But nonetheless, welcome back here, March Madness episode. Obviously, if you've been living under a rock, the NCAA tournament's been going on for the past 4 days, this past weekend. And if you missed our episode where we gave our full bracket predictions, go tune in because there were some interesting picks made in those, no doubt. I'm down to three Final Four teams left. Shout out Gonzaga for giving me just an absolute heartbreaking almost comeback against Houston. Um, I believe all four of your Final Four teams are still alive, I think. Which one?
St. John's is gone.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, I
Everybody else is still alive though, but St. John's is gone.
Yeah, forgot about that. Yeah, so someone beat them, but we'll get to that in a second. But look, let's address the first elephant in the room, which is that all people are talking about. And we're judging this first and second round for where are the upsets, Austin? That's what everyone wants to know. Everyone's judging this NCAA tournament because there wasn't as much chaos in recent years. And before you answer, I just want to say I feel like we've been very spoiled over the last couple of years with it because we've seen a 16 seed go down again with the shortest lineup ever. We had Jack Golke randomly go off for Oakland. We had the Final Four in Houston, which featured Florida Atlantic, San Diego State, Miami, and UConn. Three teams making their first ever trips to the Final Four. So I just feel like in recent year we're spoiled. So it's if we only get a few upsets and everyone's just like, what in the world? So your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'm with you. What, for the first however many years of the NCAA tournament, a 16 seed had never beat a one seed. Now, within the last decade for sure, but I think even shorter than that, we've seen it twice now. So yeah, I would agree that we're completely spoiled, but you look at some of these games, we had New Mexico over Marquette. You have Colorado State over Memphis, huge upset. Drake over Missouri, Arkansas over Kansas, Arkansas over St. John's in the second round. I mean, I won't go into too much detail because obviously we have a show to do here, and I won't say every single game that happened. But yeah, I mean, I think that that's pretty ludicrous. I mean, I just rattled off several double-digit seeds that have upsets, not to mention Creighton over Louisville. Louisville's the number two team in the ACC this year. Creighton was like three or four in the Big East. While I'm in love with Creighton basketball and everything that they do, it's still an upset 9/8. And when you look at you hear the talk of the Power Four conferences and that they should be getting more spots. This is a big towards that for these other conferences that don't get as much love. So I think that it's a little bit ridiculous and a little bit far-fetched. Uh, but I don't know. I'm a college basketball enjoyer. I love the tournament. This basketball is so much better than any other basketball being played in the last 5 years. I mean, I'll get into why I have some points about some of these teams and the way they play, why it's better than NBA basketball. But let's get into the show. Let's talk about this stuff.
So why don't we just start? We're going to go region by region. So we'll start with the top one, which is the South, where you mentioned Creighton had to play the number one overall seed Auburn. But let's start. Let's first talk about Auburn. They came into the tournament. There was a few question marks. They were coming in on a little bit of a cold streak. I think losing three of their last four. Took on Alabama State, which was close for maybe a half, and then they were able to pull away. And then faced, like you mentioned, a very good Creighton team to get here to the Sweet 16 for the first time since I believe when they made the Final Four in 2019. So it's been a while for them, but Creighton gave them quite a scare in that second round game.
Yeah. So, one of the teams I want to talk about here is Creighton basketball. Look, I love Creighton basketball. And they have just been built for March. If this team gets in the tournament, which they feels like they do every year, right about now, they're a scary team to play. Not only are they always one of the best three-point shooting teams in the country, but they're so unselfish. This team passes the ball, they run offensive sets, they play very good team defense. I wouldn't say anybody, this isn't a team that, is going to lead the nation in defensive statistical categories. And it's not a team that's going to recruit in, some of your best like individual defenders in the nation. But just the way they communicate and play defense, and they mix up the sets, it's what makes college basketball so great and makes this team so dangerous. They match up with a Louisville team that just couldn't handle everything they had to offer. And those unique defensive looks and that unselfishness on offense is what allowed them to keep this game close to Auburn, especially with Auburn's big dogs either getting hurt or struggling. It took the step up of this incredibly deep Auburn team to really help this team put this game away. But look, NBA basketball, I tried to watch a game last night. Warriors and Heat was on. I was like, oh, Jimmy Butler playing the Heat. This will be an interesting game to watch. It's just nonstop isolation basketball, no matter who has the ball. It's no disrespect, but I do not want to see Caleb Martin running isolation. I don't. And he's a great basketball player. What he does, he's a great role player. He's a good shooter, and he plays very good defense for his size. I mean, that's what it's allowed him, both of those twins, to thrive in the NBA, playing the 2, 3, and the 4 because of their defensive ability. But to me, I don't want to watch Caleb Martin run ISO ball 7 times in a game. It makes no sense. There's no offensive sets. It's the same old bland half court man to man defense. Mix it up. An NBA team that wants to shake something up, hire a coach who's going to run zone and who's going to run a full court press when it's not the fourth quarter of a close game. Get somebody who's going to mix up defense and force teams to run some offense. And we'll talk about it a little bit later with some of these other teams we saw, but just a mixing up of defenses and not just straight half court man to man all the time leads to teams having to do some thinking, and it leads to some fun stuff. But Auburn gets the job done. The big thing we've seen from them in this tournament so far is, like I said just a second ago, the depth. The way that when one guy has a bad game, right now somebody else is stepping up. I think if this team wants to win a national title, Jay Broome has got to step his game up, and he has got to start leading this team. But right now they've been helped out by the depth and skill on this team. But if this team's going to make a run any deeper into March and into April, Jay Broome has got to step up and be a better piece for these Auburn Tigers. He's making too many mistakes and just being too inconsistent right now.
And of course, one of the big things, they had a couple injuries. You mentioned it. The big one being Chad Baker Mazara. He had an injury he was dealing with. They said he should be good to go, but again, it's something to always monitor there. But yeah, Auburn got that done. Then let's go to the next part, see who they'll be facing in the Sweet 16, which, hand up, this was probably the portion where everyone picked upsets in these first round games with Michigan and A&M. Neither one got the job done. Neither UC San Diego put up a good fight. Yale against A&M, I'll just be honest with you, was never even really that close. And then this matchup between Michigan and A&M, A&M dominated the game for the I'd say probably first 20, 25 minutes. But then the final 10, 15 minutes of the game, Michigan and their size, their shooting ability took over down the stretch to lead them to the win and get to the Sweet 16. And I'll say this, Michigan, at least to me, when the regular season ended, their last thing was they got blown out, humiliated by Michigan State. And I'm like, this is a team that struggled as of late. I really don't know if I'll pick them to go far in the NCAA tournament. Then they go on a run in the Big Ten tournament, and now they're here in the Sweet 16. Their coach, Dusty May, talking about the team needed a reset after the regular season was over. And I think it's safe to say it's worked out, Austin, with them getting to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Coming into this tournament, I didn't really know what to think about Michigan. But with my bracket, I picked for the best. I picked what I know this team was capable of, and I expected them to come out and play their best basketball, especially after the way they played in the Big Ten tournament. That was a big revival for them, and that gave me confidence that this team can play the type of basketball they desire. But I did have the Yale upset in the first round. I had Michigan, but I had the Yale upset. And the big thing about this is, like you said, it wasn't super duper close ever. But Yale just could not get a stop. Even in the second half, this Yale offense came alive. They were scoring every possession. But then they would just come down and give up. They'd go in, attack the basket, get a layup, and then they'd give up a layup to Texas A&M in 2 seconds. So not only were they eating clock, running their offense, and getting their open shots and knocking them down, but then they were immediately giving up a practically transition score every time down the floor. And so, yeah, it became insurmountable for them, even with, like I said, the run till the final horn for like the last 4 or 5 minutes. They were scoring nonstop, but they could not play any defense. And then when they did start to inch a little bit closer, they had some huge fouls on 3-point shots. So just the discipline on defense from Yale was not what I expected. Texas A&M took full advantage, but in this game, we saw exactly what everybody is now going to have to worry about when you get Michigan in this tournament: the size. And that's the big thing I'm wondering about Auburn. That's why I say Jay Broom has to get going because they've got two dominant 7-footers. And when these guys are playing their best basketball, which they are right now, this Michigan team is going to be hard to beat. They're exactly where I've got them. I had these two teams picked perfectly here, making it this far. I had Michigan winning this game because I thought the two bigs would come alive. That so far has been the case. Let's see if Jay Broom can shut me up, though.
Now, that will be quite a matchup between those two. And then next up here, our next team we're going to talk about. This portion was one we kept an eye on with Ole Miss, Iowa State having the injury to Keyshawn Gilbert. What would it be like? You know, North Carolina blew out San Diego State in the first four, so we're all like, "Oh, watch out for North Carolina against Ole Miss." But then I think there's something that a lot of people, including myself, I'll blame because I did pick North Carolina to beat them, is that Chris Beard knows how to win this time of year. And that's something I take full responsibility for. And we saw with them taking care of North Carolina and then just humiliating Iowa State, dominating them. And how about that with Chris Beard? It's got the Ole Miss Rebels into the Sweet 16. I tell you, the shooting they have is already incredible. And then you factor in the defense that Chris Beard always brings with him. It's a tough out that this Ole Miss Rebels team is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, again, hand up myself as well. I did not factor in this Ole Miss team and the experience of Chris Beard. Like you said, he knows how to get it done. And I doubted this Ole Miss team, but they've come through big with some big games, and now they've got a real big challenge with another guy who knows how to get it done this time of year.
Ain't that a fun coaching matchup we're going to talk about, which is with the Michigan State Spartans, a team that was super popular pick, had a close call with Bryant in the first round. Bryant gave them quite a battle and then had to face New Mexico, who also gave them a pretty good battle for most of the game. But in both games, Michigan State, really the final 10 minutes, was able to pull away in those games and get to the Sweet 16. Like you said, it's two great coaches going head to head. You got Chris Beard going against the man whose nickname is literally Mr. March in Tom Izzo.
Yeah, I love this Michigan State team. I said it coming into the tournament. This is the best Michigan State team we've seen in a long time. They're a better last second shot decision in the semifinals of the Big Ten away from going to the Big Ten championship and potentially winning that. So I think that I really love this team. I love the guard play. Just seeing kind of the way these guys go at it. But yeah, Izzo's a great coach. He knows how to get the job done. I really like this Michigan State team, but yeah, it's going to be no easy fight against Ole Miss, a team that's been shooting the lights out in the tournament too.
It'll be a scrappy matchup, but Austin, let's just say like this. Out of those four teams we discussed, who do you believe, after what you've seen in the first two rounds and what you believe will come out of this South region?
Look, I'm going to stick to my guns with what I said coming into this with our tournament preview. I like Michigan over Auburn. Could Jay Broom come in and play a big game? Sure, and I hope he does. I'd hope for a great game in this game. But right now, it feels like Michigan's got the ball rolling the way they needed to. They've revived themselves the way I expected them to. I like Michigan to win. And then even though it's going to be against a different opponent for Michigan State, I like this Michigan State team. And I like them to keep going. I'm going to stick to my guns. These teams have played the way I expected them to. I want to see them meet up in the Elite Eight still. It'd be a heck of a matchup.
Oh man, I mean, speaks for itself. I mean, a Michigan State Elite Eight matchup, which of course you wonder the way the regular season ended with Michigan State humiliating Michigan on the final day of the regular season. But we talked about Michigan had a hard reset before the Big Ten tournament, and they look like a different team when they're playing through the post, like we talked about. But yeah, I'm with you. I like Michigan over Auburn just because I think the combination. Plus, I mean, I think Danny Wolf kind of has some familiarity with Auburn. If you
Yeah.
know, you know. And then obviously, I think Michigan State Ole Miss. I think that will be a slugfest, but I'll lean with Michigan State in the matchup. So yeah, I'm with you. I want a Michigan State Elite Eight. I mean, that
Yeah.
just sounds like fun. That sounds like something that would be super fun. I would probably though. If you ask me, I would probably lean Michigan State, but it's a coin flip between those two because of how well Michigan's played as of late.
Yeah. Yeah, I would go Michigan State. But yeah, just like you said, it's going to be super close, super razor thin. Michigan finally playing their best ball. They're playing hot in the tournament, and you got to think keep talking about that upset at the end of the regular season where they well not upset, but the way they got embarrassed, that blowout, could be a little fuel for the fire for both sides coming into that Elite Eight matchup. So yeah, I think it's going to be super razor thin if those two end up meeting in the Elite Eight.
Double-digit wins for Michigan State against Michigan both times in the postseason. But now let's move across to the East region, and this one's kind of interesting, I will say. Not a lot of chaos over here, but some fun matchups. But let's start with Duke. I felt very confident coming into this. I told you if it's me, I'm not even letting Cooper Flag go out there and play in the first two rounds. I didn't think they need him. And I was kind of right, but he ended up playing, so that kind of helps with the blowout wins. But dominated Mount St. Mary. Baylor kept it close most of the first half, but then once Norchad Omier picked up that third foul, it was all Duke from there in the rest of the first half and the rest of the game. So a very easy road for Duke to the Sweet 16 thus far.
Yeah, they've had the easy path like we expected. They've gotten this far. This is where Duke is going to start to get tested. So we'll see. Is Cooper Flag 100%? And we'll see if the rest of the team can pick up some slack with or without Cooper Flag being 100%. Because Arizona is another team that's going to test you in March. So far, it goes according to plan for Duke, but let's see if they can keep it up and show up against the other top teams in this side of the bracket.
We'll see. And you mentioned them, Arizona's who they will face in the Sweet 16, which has a familiar face for Duke fans that
Yeah,
they may not very much like or remember. But let's just say like this: Liberty couldn't take care of beat Oregon. Akron, Arizona, I thought had potential to be a great game. Arizona ran through them. Oregon, Arizona. That one on Sunday night just felt like a late night, like Pac-12 after dark. It felt like we were
yeah,
back, felt like we were back to a regular season late night matchup between those two was awesome. Arizona came this close to blowing it at the very end, though, gave Oregon lots of
yes.
chances, but Arizona at the end survived. And like I said, it's Caleb Love getting the playoff against Duke again. So what more could you ask for there?
Yeah, I think this game really comes down to how does this team stop Cooper Flag? We know the guard plays great, and I think honestly the guard battle I think really goes to Arizona. I think they've got the better guards. But with Cooper Flag, the guy can do so much. He's such an impactful player. It's why he's projected to be the number one pick in the NBA draft. It's why he's the top guy in March Madness right now. So all eyes are on him if he's healthy. How are they going to limit him and force a different Blue Devil to hurt you? I think is what we're going to have to see. That's going to be the big story for me for Arizona. We know what they're capable of, but what are they going to do to make Duke uncomfortable and make Duke play for their second and third best players?
We got to keep it on Tyrese Proctor, of course, for Duke. Had a huge game against Baylor in the second round. We know what he can do shooting wise. My prediction: Caleb Love will either have the greatest game of his life or go like 2 for 20 shooting, and it just be a
Yeah.
terrible game for him. One of the two is going to happen. It won't be a middle of the road. It'll either be the best or the worst for him.
Yeah, I'd keep an eye on Caleb Love to get ejected in this game. He's got a bit of a temper. He gets thrown out, and now he's playing against. Look, he may not be a Tar Heel anymore, but if you think he likes Duke any more than he did back in the day, you'd be wrong about that. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe late in this game, one way or the other, tempers might flare, and Caleb Love might find himself thrown out of this game. Certainly, I hope it doesn't end up being a deciding factor in the game, but I think that'd be an interesting situation to watch. Just with, I know he's a little bit of a competitor. to put it lightly.
I think it'd be funny too. Plus, it was the way he answered the post game questions. Like, how do you get ready for Duke? Just does a sly smile after he hears. He's like, "Well, we got to watch the tape." I'm like, "Oh, he's ready for him.
Yeah.
He's ready for it." But let's get to the other matchup here, which is really buckle up. First to two, it might be first to 100 points to win this Sweet 16 matchup. But we'll talk about one of the teams first, which is BYU. Coming into the tournament, they were a 6 seed that a lot of people felt very confident could make an NCAA tournament run. I had VCU beating them. I wondered about the defense, but they handled VCU very well and then took down Wisconsin in a thrilling game that came down to the final shot. But BYU, let's just say it like this, Austin, they can score, and score a lot of points.
Yeah, this is a great team. Look, I kind of slept on BYU. I thought that VCU would bring that shock factor. They're a great defensive team. They kept the game close, but they just couldn't match the crazy scoring of BYU. But this game against Wisconsin, man, this was a great ball game to watch. Phenomenal till the very finish. But again, I wish Wisconsin could have taken a better shot there at the end of the game.
Yeah.
I understand playing through your best player, and I certainly like him attacking the basket, but no fall away jump shots. I mean, that should just be a rule as a head coach. No fall away jump shots at the end of a game. You need to be getting as close to the basket as possible. But I'm also the school of thought if you fade away, that you shouldn't get a foul call. So I like that the officials played it straight up and didn't give him anything. I think if you want to foul, you need to go at the basket. You need to lean into contact. Fadeaways made to lean away from contact. I don't think you deserve any calls there. But BYU has just played phenomenal. Like you said, they pushed into this tournament. They're scoring at a high pace, and that's going to be hard to contain. I wondered about this matchup with Wisconsin, but the way they matched them up and defended them, really they should have won this game by more. They almost blew it here at the end of this game. So BYU maybe step up a little bit more on the defense, but scoring, you're not going to be able to just straight up outscore this team.
And I mean, that's saying something, I think, whenever you look at the team they're going to face in the Sweet 16. But I'll add to that play at the end of the Wisconsin game with Tonje. My thing is was like you said, he started going to the rim and stopped and did a fall away. I'm like, go all the way. Go
Yeah.
all the way to the basket. Go up strong. Put the onus on the official to make a call there if you really want it. Yeah, I'm not going to reward you for doing a fall away jumper late in the game. I'm not going to award that. So I'm with you on that. But let's take a look at their opponent, who, like I said, will be playing them in a track meet, which is
Yeah.
the Alabama Crimson Tide, a team that got a scare from Robert Morris in round one until they put Grant Nelson in the game for the final 8 minutes, in which Bama was able to pull away at the very end, and then took on St. Mary's in a game, which was just funny on different levels. One of the slowest teams in college basketball versus one of the fastest, and Bama really had control of that thing wire to wire with it. St. Mary's Vanderbilt, I want to say, by the way, was a great game in the first round.
Yeah.
Low scoring, but it was a fun game. But yeah, Alabama, again, we know what Nate Oates brings, Austin. That no mid-range offense. We're either going to the basket or we're shooting the three-point shot, and they're going to score a lot. This game against BYU, you're gonna need to catch your breath every chance you can because there's gonna be a lot of points scored.
Yeah, and as much as I despise Nate Oates and his character, um, I think Alabama making a run in this was expected for them to get this far, especially with the pace they play. Like you said, this is going to be high speed, breakneck pace. You might get whiplash going here, watching this game, because it truly will be up and down the floor. Anybody's ball game in this one. I really don't even know how you pick these two teams. Neither of them, I would say, great defensive units, but both teams are efficient and put up a lot of points. So, man, this is going to be razor thin margin for this one.
Over under is currently at 175 and a half. I mean, it's
That's
up, it's
wild.
getting up there. I think it started even lower somehow. So yeah, it started at 173 and it's rising currently, which tells you again how everyone feels about it. But yeah, a fun kind of setting here in the East region. Austin, who do you believe entering the Sweet 16? Who do you think is going to come out of this East region?
I'm gonna stick to Duke. The way they've played and the way Cooper Flag's played, uh, that bodes confidence for me. You know, they didn't really struggle, like we said, in the first two rounds. And I think that built some confidence for this team to continue to move on. But I think Arizona's going to keep it close. I like Arizona as a unit. I think they'll keep this game close, but I think Duke will just overall be enough. I just don't know that they have enough to be able to stop and affect Cooper Flag effectively for the entire length of this game. Uh, and then with BYU, Alabama, I had Alabama making it to the Elite Eight, but with the way BYU's playing right now, I like BYU to win this game. Neither of these teams have had, just phenomenal runs. I'd say, BYU's pretty much dominated VCU in the first round, while Alabama struggled against Robert Morris in the first round, but then kind of a flip flop. BYU was winning the game, almost blew it at the end against Wisconsin, and Alabama, basically coasted to a victory against St. Mary's. So I don't think really anything in the previous round sets them apart. I think BYU's riding hot though. They come out and they give us our first real big upset maybe in the Elite Eight here.
I will just say this is my thought on it. The winner of Duke, Arizona, I think makes the Final Four. I think the winner of Duke, Arizona is who's going to be representing the East in the Final Four. And I'm with you. I think it'll end up being Duke. I think the shooting and the way everyone else has contributed to go along with Cooper Flag. I mean, Tyrese Proctor, if he shoots like he did against Baylor, Duke will win this game by 20 plus.
Mhm.
So I'll probably lean Duke. BYU, Alabama, like I said, such a coin flip of a game with the track speed pace. I would probably lean BYU, maybe just because I think they're the more red hot team entering it as of late. But yeah, it'll be first to 100 is going to win this game. So
Yeah.
that's my thought on that. But let's move down to the Midwest here, where you know it was pure chalk. 1-4, 2-3 matchups in the Sweet 16. And let's start with Houston. Although Houston dominated SIUE in round one when they expected, had control of Gonzaga most of that game in round two, but a very late push by Battle and Gonzaga. They were this close to making an unbelievable comeback, but Houston was able to survive and get back to that Sweet 16.
Yeah, that's the same thing I thought. I was like, oh, domination, holding them off, and then hold your horses. I gotta pay a little bit more attention to this ball game, because all of a sudden we got ourselves a close game. But yeah, Houston, getting the job done. Look, they were tested a little bit more than they would have liked to be against Gonzaga, but they're here where a lot of people expected them to be. Um, and now they're going to face off against a Purdue team that is blazing hot right now. The way they're shooting the ball is unbelievable. And to me, I know they made the national championship last year, but this offense, I'll just say it, this Purdue offense works so much better when you don't have a 7-footer standing in the middle of the paint doing nothing. This offense flows better, it creates better opportunities, and the team shoots better because they're not being dared to shoot 45 times a game. I don't know how you look at this Purdue team and think that it's worse than last year. Not that anybody's saying that, but I know they made the national championship. I know they were a 1 seed. But to me, when you watch this offense and you see the way they flow, I just don't know how you don't look at this team and say, wow, this is a better team. And it's no disrespect to Zach Edey, but he provided almost nothing on offense. He was a terrible rebounder for his size. He was a bit of a challenge in the paint on defense, but on offense, this offense, they move, they flow, they find the open shooter, they beat defenses, not defenses daring your worst 3-point shooters to shoot so they can double team your center. It just looks better. I like the way this Purdue team's been riding. I think this is going to be a really fun matchup against Houston.
Even with Purdue had to beat a High Point team that I was very high on. Nothing there trying
Yeah.
to go with that. But High Point, they took care of business against them, really led that wire to wire. High Point had a late push, got out of control. McNeese, though, with the upset over Clemson right before Will Wade's going to NC State, with his manager following him, in case you
Yeah.
want to know, he's following him to NC State. But then that second round, you watched it. I mean, I was with you. The shooting that Purdue had offensively in that game to get it to pretty much blow out territory in the blink of an eye in that one really had control of it. So yeah, the thing with both these teams, they're red. They love the 3-point shot. Purdue attack, drive, kick out. Houston, their offense is literally success on the 3-point line, which is something with Houston the last couple of years, Austin. We've said, yeah, great defensive team. What are they going to do offensively? And this year it's been the 3-point shot for them. I'm with you. This will be a very fun matchup. But geographically, if you think about it, this is in Indianapolis, Indiana. I think Houston got a bad rap for the Midwest here
Yeah,
in the Sweet 16.
agreed.
But as far as the other matchup goes, how about an all SEC matchup to decide the next one? First, you have Kentucky here, took care of business against Troy, took down your Fighting Illini in the second round, which was kind of a fun game. Just Kentucky got off to a really good start and never really looked back in the game. But this offense, we know what this Kentucky offense can be. But when Lamont Butler's playing, like you saw in this tournament, their defense is a lot better for them, which makes them even more dangerous this time of year.
Yeah, Kentucky just looks so good right now. And then that Illinois matchup, the thing I really think about Illinois this year, they just didn't have a defensive presence this year like they have had the last few years. You think of guys like Iodo Sumo, who have come through there and been super good physical defenders. We just didn't really have that. And so, yeah, a team like this Kentucky team able to get out and start scoring early, it was going to be playing the catch-up game. And this team has not done that well at all this year. But Kentucky looks really good. New head coach, newish team from this offseason. But now they seem to be hitting their stride and really getting going in March, even though they had some ups and downs over the course of the regular season. This is going to be a very interesting team and offense to watch. I wonder about their defense is a big thing for me as we move on into this tournament.
Well, defense won't be a problem for the next team they face in the Sweet 16, which is the Tennessee Volunteers. Handle business against Wofford in round one. We know what they bring on the defensive side. Zakai Ziegler, Chaz Lanier, what they bring. Handled UCLA pretty much all the way. It feels like in recent years you've wondered about Rick Barnes and what he can do come tournament time. But it's safe to say he's gotten this Tennessee team rolling right now as of late. But let's say it like it is, though. Regular season, Kentucky won both matchups head to head between these two. But similar to the talk whenever we had Michigan State and talking about that earlier, this is in the NCAA tournament, win or go home. I think you'll see very different games from the first two times these teams played.
I agree. I'm looking at this being a low scoring game. I think Tennessee is going to come out and be very physical, very tough on the defensive end. But yeah, I like this Tennessee team the way they've played. They started out slow against UCLA. They started giving up big baskets. Then they got through and they found their guys. What I really like about this Tennessee team is the way they're able to facilitate the ball and find the open guy. They've got some great leaders on this team that run this offense. But yeah, they don't really have one guy that kind of leads this offensive unit. They trust everybody and they find the open man that kick out to the open shooter. Oh, I love watching Tennessee basketball. Great defense, great offense. I like this Tennessee team in this tournament. I liked them coming into it, and I think they've been as advertised this season.
Yeah. All right. So I think I know where you're leaning with this one, if I remember your bracket correctly. But how do you see this Midwest section playing out? Which, by the way, is in Lucas Oil Stadium. How do you feel about that? Kind of being in a football stadium for the Sweet 16 Elite Eight. How do you feel about that?
It's peculiar. I guess it will come to time. We'll really tell when we're there, in the moment, watching the game. But and just seeing the kind of the environment of these teams playing. But no, I don't love it. I don't understand how the seating.
We're using like half the stadium pretty much for like seating and stuff.
Okay,
And then they're gonna like
that
on
makes
the
a
other
little.
side, they're gonna bring the seating in.
Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. Well then I don't know, but I guess we'll see. I don't love it, but they don't pay me to figure that stuff out for a reason. So, we'll see when it comes time and how it goes. But I personally keep the basketball games out of the football stadiums. Maybe that's a hot take.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. But before cutting it off with that question, I think I know where you're leaning, but who you got coming out of this Midwest?
Um, I still like Tennessee. I had Tennessee. I think they've played, the brand of basketball I expected. I think they'll continue. I had them going all the way to the national championship. Right now, I haven't seen anything that tells me they can't. Uh, but on the other side, I had Houston also making it to the Elite Eight. But with the way they've been playing as of late, I wouldn't say they've been playing bad, but they're running into a Purdue team that I think is playing really, really good. I like Purdue to come in and upset this Houston team. I think they're playing a little bit more efficiently right now. Their offense is running smoothly. This team, man, I would not want to run into this Purdue team right now. They're playing that great of basketball. I like Purdue to upset Houston here and move on to that Elite Eight.
So it potentially is a rematch of last year's Elite Eight between Purdue and Tennessee, which was also a great game between those two. Purdue eventually went on to win that one, but yeah, I'd probably lean Tennessee with you. Although I tell you, man, a Houston Tennessee Elite Eight game would be a slugfest.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be a battle. It would be so much fun to watch for just basketball lovers. Maybe not for the typical normal fan that just wants high scoring, like like Bama and BYU, but it would be a great one with it. But let's head over to the West, which is truly has really our only Cinderella team in it, which we'll get to them in a second. But let's talk about the upper part first, and that is with the Florida Gators here, team that took care of Norfolk State very quickly, but Austin had to play the back-to-back champs in round two. And boy, oh boy, did those two give us an instant classic in round two.
Yeah, this is a great basketball game to watch. Um, Florida really the resilience and the comeback. They played their best basketball in the last 4 minutes of the game. Uh, but that's kind of the danger of this team, and why they're so scary is look, they can play these grinded out, physical, lower scoring games, and keep it close and hang around and then shoot the lights out at the end of the game, or they can score 100 points on you. They do so much. They can play, it feels, at any speed in any situation. And that's what makes Florida such a difficult team. It's why they're a number one seed. It's why they were, I think, the most picked champion in the bracket challenge. This is an exciting team. That being said, that first half was ugly for Florida. They made the comeback. They made the adjustments at the end of this game to win it, but they cannot continue to play halves of basketball the way they played the first half of that game.
Absolutely. But Walter Clayton Jr. hitting some big shots for
Yes.
Florida down
Huge.
the stretch. Some shots I'm like, what are you? Great shot, Walter. I always knew you could make
Yeah.
those kind of shots. But the team they'll be facing with arguably one of the best nicknames that people have heard of, the Crab Five in Maryland. Took care of Grand Canyon one in round one. You mentioned it, Colorado State upsetting Memphis in round one, giving us Colorado State and Maryland in round two, and probably, dare I say, probably just the best overall game, wire to wire finishing between those two. Was a great battle that came out on top with a Derek Queen buzzer beater. Some think he might have traveled on it. Some think he might have. But nonetheless, the Crab Fives in the Sweet 16, and they are in for a fun matchup with Florida.
Yeah, this Maryland team is fun. They're finding ways to get it done. Like you said, the buzzer beater in a close game against Colorado State. Oof, heartbreaker. But they've showed that they've got the skills to get the job done. And I think they're going to pose an interesting matchup for the Florida Gators.
I think so. You do wonder, though, the depth of Maryland, not the greatest. Could that come into play whenever they play Florida? We'll see there. Now, to the bottom half of the West region, we have the Texas Tech Red Raiders, who took care of UNC. I shouldn't say took care, got quite a scare from UNC Wilmington in round one.
Yeah.
Then had to take on a Drake team that upset Missouri. Like I told you, easiest pick of my life whenever we did this last week. I won so much money off Drake money line, you have no idea. But took on Drake in round two, and this was a game. Texas Tech had a pretty good shooting night compared to round one, and still were able to take care of business against Drake. Really led wire to wire for it, and are back in the Sweet 16 in Austin. They're a fun offense that loves the 3-point shot.
Yeah, fun, up tempo, high scoring. Love watching Texas Tech's basketball this year. Um, you wonder though, they did kind of struggle with some of the top talent in the Big 12 this year. You wonder as the crowd starts to get thinner and the best teams start to present themselves, especially with the team they're playing in this Sweet 16 here. Are they going to be able to match the talent? Are they going to be able to continue to come out and win the game? Because this Arkansas team, they're a 10 seed, sure, but they have the talent of like a 3 seed. Uh, they just didn't play their best basketball until now. And that's the big thing here. This has been a tough draw for people coming into Arkansas, for Kansas, for St. John's, now for Texas Tech. Is look, 10 seeds usually put up a pretty good fight anyway, but this is a 10 seed playing with the talent of a top 4 seed. Uh, and a top 4 seed in a region, I should say. Uh, and they're coming in, and you've got to play them in the first or second round. Now, Texas Tech's going to have a tough challenge here, but if they stay true to their game, they can certainly win it. Arkansas is not exactly a 3-point shooting team, but still, it's going to be interesting to see how they measure up against the higher talented teams as we get later into this tournament. Definitely something they struggled at in Big 12 play.
Yeah. And of course, shout out to Drake, though. Great season they had. They're already making more coaching news. Their head coach on his way to Iowa, which is a great hire for them, I think, and also just, right there with it. So I think it's a great hire. The question, though, you do think here, that was that guy who was at Ben McCollum, the coach that's now at Iowa. That was Drake. He was a D2 coach before last year. And the success he had instantly with Drake, now going over to Iowa, you wonder, this is something I thought about whenever having, you wonder, do some of these lower tier schools give more D2 head coaches a chance to move up to Division One to prove themselves? You got to wonder if that's something we look at seeing maybe in the future now with success from someone like Ben McCollum.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head. Why not? Look, teams are always looking to try something new when you're having struggles, having issues, looking for a different way to spark your team. And sometimes that's the way it goes. It happened in the NFL after Sean McVay was hired and the Rams became this offensive superpower. That became the new thing, was to hire the young offensive guru to be your new head coach and revamp your offense. And that's still a trend that continues on in the NFL now. Think about guys like Ben Johnson being hired as the Bears head coach. So yeah, I certainly think that could be a train of thought to say, hey, let's find the next head coaching prodigy now. Let's not wait around and wait for some assistant under Tom Izzo who's ready to find a new job. Let's go out and get a guy in D2s winning basketball and see if he's got what it takes to coach at the next level.
I think so. But you talked about who Texas Tech will be playing. If you would have told me in January or February that this team would be playing in the Sweet 16, I would have called you nuts. That's the Arkansas Razorbacks here, 10 seed. You talked about it, Austin. I mean, just such a tough draw as a 10 seed. Having for Kansas having to play Arkansas, a phenomenal game between those two. Was the most watched opening round window ever whenever those two were going head to head in round one, which was a great game. And then you had to take on St. John's. And good God, Austin, this second round game was a throwback game if I've ever seen a throwback game. It was 1990s basketball. Terrible 3-point shooting, attacking the basket, not a lot of whistles being called until the very end, which is totally different thing. But it was a throwback style game that Arkansas managed to come out on top of. It was an awesome game in throwback style.
Look, I'm gonna say this much. This was probably my least favorite game to watch the whole tournament. While there were elements of it that were fun, the second half was a whistle every
My
possession,
gosh, it was so
which
bad.
was just awful to watch. I mean, both teams are shooting free throws at the end of every possession. I didn't understand. But really the big thing for me was the both teams just jacking up 3-pointers was blowing my mind. Neither of these teams great 3-point shooting teams, and especially for St. John's to me, the way they ended the first half, I started to realize Arkansas is going to have a real chance to win this game. They had 3 fouls on, or 2 fouls on Brazil, 2 fouls on Adu, and 2 fouls on, actually 3 fouls on Avicic. And they decided, hey, we're going to jack up contested threes every possession instead of attack the hoop and get basically open layups for the rest of the first half because Avicic doesn't want to get his fourth foul. Uh, Instead of doing that, they jack up threes and they end up losing the first half and then lose this game because they adopt the same strategy down four with 2 minutes left. It was perplexing decision making. I don't know if that was a game plan from Rick Pitino. Bizarre for a Hall of Fame coach to change a team's style of play in a matchup that really lended itself to their style of play. Uh, but to me, the thing that I will give Arkansas some credit for is that in the second half, they did a great job of, I'm not exactly sure I'm going to call it a zone, but they walled off the post in the front, and then a wing just crept over and kept that lob pass over the top, and they just made sure that St. John's had to shoot the three for the rest of the game. They just took away the inside, the pass inside, and then St. John's felt like the only thing they could do was shoot the three ball. So I'm going to lend some hand. There's great defensive, again, mixing up your defense, not just sticking to true man to man, but forcing this team to do something they're not comfortable with. And it helped out big time. Arkansas took advantage and got the job done against the St. John's team that honestly played their worst basketball of the entire season. Bad time to become, a 3-point shooting team.
Really bad time. And also, I mean, like I said, RJ Lewis, Big East Player of the Year, not playing those final few minutes. Pretty stunning, even though, I mean, let's face it, he shot 3 for 17, not great. But the one thing about this time of year with your star players is you rely on them down the stretch. It doesn't matter. DJ Wagner had struggles this year for Arkansas, but he was the go-to guy offensively.
Yeah.
So was questionable there. You wonder what that means maybe for the future for St. John's, but Arkansas somehow in the Sweet 16 with this team, with the struggles they have with all the injuries. And again, the crazy thing, Austin, they're somehow getting better at this right time of year. Boogie Flan coming back, giving good minutes. Now, Adou Thiero is expected to play against Texas Tech. I'm told it'll be a minute restriction, so maybe 10, 15 minutes total. But still, basically having a full healthy lineup for the first time since maybe November, December. And that's when the team wasn't clicking. Now the team's clicking and they have a full healthy roster. I mean, this is a very tough team that some people are going to have to figure out.
Yeah, I think this team just instantly became maybe one of the deepest teams left in the tournament. That's really scary. So yeah, I like the way this Razorback team's been playing. They found a way to get it done. And Calipari, again, it's why, he's one of the greatest coaches of all time. The way he, like I said, with that defense, I really can't preach enough. This team isn't a great defensive team necessarily, but the way he used their defensive game plan to kind of pin St. John's arm behind their back, make them play a game of basketball that I still don't think they had to play, but they felt like they had to play. Um, Helped Arkansas single-handedly win this game. How many three-point shots St. John's took in this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think so, but honestly, they're going to play a good shooting team in Texas Tech, though. Who do you see coming out of this West region?
Man, I want the and now that Arkansas has destroyed really hasn't destroyed my bracket because it's 94% accurate, except for the fact that my national champion is out in
Flex?
the round.
Flex?
Um, so it's a shame. That's the thing I keep thinking is like this is gonna be like a 90% bracket, but my champ went out in the second round. So as much as I'd be okay with Arkansas just kind of torching the rest of my bracket, I still just don't know. Look, they've been full of surprises this tournament. They're playing their best basketball. I'm not going to say that they're going to get blown out. But coming into this game, I like Texas Tech. So I'm going to stick with Texas Tech, but root for Arkansas, and hope they come out and surprise us and continue an awesome Cinderella run into the Elite Eight. Um, if you had asked me before the second round game for Florida, would have Florida winning this game over Maryland easy. Um, but after the way they played against UConn, they showed great resilience in the second half. I'm not going to sleep on this team. I think it'll be a close game. and Florida definitely could win this game. But the way they shot at the free throw line and some of their poor execution in the first half, I like Maryland and the Crab Five to come out here and stun Florida, catch them napping, ride the high of the buzzer beater in the second round, and push on to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, I'd say I'll just say like this. Texas Tech has been my sleeper team the entire year, but I'm a Razorback fan, so I'm damned if I do and damned if I don't here. Um, I worry about the shooting at Texas Tech. If Texas Tech starts this game red hot from three, it's over in my
Yeah,
eyes. Like if Texas Tech comes out, hits 3 or 4 threes early in the first, I'm like, uh-oh, we're in trouble. Oh boy. But I'll pick Arkansas. I'll root for Arkansas, but if in the end, if you ask me, I'd probably think Texas Tech will be the one that wins the game. Florida and Maryland, I would say Maryland because I'm with you kind of some questions about Florida, but I think the guard play of Walter Clayton Jr. will be the difference late to get Florida the win. But I'd probably say Florida still to the Final Four, and I'm not just saying that because they are my national champion. Partly I am, um, but I mean I still think this team, like you said, whenever it happens, this team can win if it's a low scoring, slow paced game. They can win it. If it's an up tempo game in the 80s and 90s, they can win it. They can win in different styles, which is just that's why it's hard for me to doubt them this time of year.
agreed.
All right, so we gave our predictions there, though, Austin. So that's going to be it for our talk for March Madness for this episode on the men's side. The women's side, we really kind of didn't get into as much of it, but let's address the big elephant in the room, Austin. That's Juju Watkins
Yeah.
tearing her ACL on Monday night. Just a terrible injury for her and her career, but also for USC and their national championship dreams for their women's team. So a tough injury for USC. How do they respond if they want to make a run on that women's side?
Yeah, you got to start finding, your next best player, or the team's got to step up together, and find a new way to play. But yeah, that it was certainly a shocker and a heartbreaker. Obviously, one of the best players in women's basketball right now, and one of the best teams. And you hate to see a tournament, a championship, and a season, decided by anything other than playing on the court.
Yeah, I think that, but that's also got to open things up for UConn in that region, who has looked red hot. Don't look at the UConn Arkansas State score. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. And I say that
Yeah,
to anyone that hasn't seen it either. Don't look at it. It's not good. Arkansas State hit a half court buzzer beater,
love to
but
see
the
that.
scores, yeah.
I had Arkansas State with first round upset in that game, if you believe that, in my bracket. Go Red Wolves.
Well,
But yeah,
Austin, I hate to say it, but really was never that close.
no,
Yeah,
it wasn't.
yeah,
Foolish optimism. What can I say?
yeah. I'll just say to this, ladies and gentlemen, the spread at one point got to plus 79.5. So do the math there on that, and that'll tell you how the game went. But on the women's side, and this is the thing in women's that it's nothing against them because it's just the elite teams are so much better than the rest that it feels like the women's tournament truly doesn't start until the Sweet 16. Although Alabama and Maryland was an awesome game. If you didn't get to see any of that game, highly recommend checking out some highlights from it. Double overtime thriller with Maryland winning. Bama had a player, Sarah Ashley Barker, I think is her name, 45 points for Bama in that game. I highly recommend watching it if you didn't get to see it. But the women's tournament usually feels like it starts now with them being in the Sweet 16. It's nothing against them, but the teams are just so much better than the bottom teams compared to the men's side.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a big thing that I realized here. I picked a lot of upsets, and I didn't get that. But it is the talent at the top is so defined. And a big thing with the women's tournament and these women's teams is that, they're built up behind these coaches. And you think of these coaches when you're one of the best women's basketball players. It works like this in all sports, but you want to go play for the best coaches. Why would you? Why wouldn't you go play for the best coaches when they come calling your phone? So it just seems like they've got these programs so built, and so stacked, that it's hard for anybody to squeeze in and make a shot.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just leave you with this on a stat, Austin. I didn't remember your women's national championship winner. I had
TCU,
UConn. It was who?
TCU.
TCU. That's what it was. I knew it was something with Haley Van Lith. I knew I remembered that. But all I'll say is this. I'll leave you with this stat for UConn. This is UConn's 31st straight Sweet 16. Just think about that. 31 straight years they've been one of the final 16 teams in the NCAA tournament. That is nuts.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That is extremely crazy. But yeah, those matchups going on there in the men's and women's. Some fun Sweet 16 action is going to be going on there, along with Elite Eight action this weekend. Tune in for all that. And then we'll, of course, discuss Final Four as well next week, get you ready for that. But also, Austin, something else is coming up. Baseball opening day tomorrow. I got to do my annual tradition of watch Moneyball the night before. It's my tradition, unlike any other. So basically, tell me why you think the Cubs are going to win the World Series or have success this year. What's it going to take for them?
The big thing is they've kind of gone for the fences a little bit. They went out and they got Kyle Tucker, who's going to be a big difference maker for this team, obviously. And they went out and added Ryan Presley. So they're taking the problems in the bullpen and taking the problems with our consistency hitting seriously. I still think there are some holes on this team that need to be filled, primarily in the bullpen and closing out the back half of the rotation. But I think any team that has Shota Imanaga and Justin Steele as their top two starters is extremely fortunate, especially when their middle infield is Dansby Swanson and Nico Horner. You're talking about two of the best ground ball pitchers, two guys in the last 2 years who have finished top five in Cy Young voting. And now you're talking about two of the best ground ball pitchers in baseball with the best defensive infield behind them, especially if Matt Shaw turns out to be a freaking stud at third base. But yeah, there's still some holes on this team. But the fact that Jed Hoyer realizes that it's go big or go home for him, and he's starting to shell out contracts and make some big moves, I think shows promise that the Cubs are going to be aggressive, hopefully around the trade deadline, and build a team that can win the NL Central, especially when the NL Central is bad this year.
Speaking of bad, you got St. Louis Cardinals there. The thing I like about the Cardinals offseason was just them being like, we're not doing a rebuild, we're doing a reset. I'm like, for the love of God, just call it a rebuild and start
Yeah.
over, for crying out loud. I mean, they let Goldschmidt walk, which was the right thing to do, I think. I mean, he was getting pretty ancient, but it allows us to put Contreras at first, which I think, if I'm being honest, we've kind of wanted to do pretty much all last year entirely with that. So Arenado's still here. Really don't know if he still wants to be here.
He doesn't.
No, he tried that. We tried the Astros trade. Didn't necessarily work out there. Terrified of what the pitching is. Sonny Gray's okay. Ryan Helsey's not bad. Everything after that, I'm like, I mean, he could have a good night. He could have a good night. So I don't know what's going to happen there. Last thing I want to ask, Austin, give me your surprise team in the MLB this year. Who do you think will be a surprise team?
Oh, surprise team in the MLB. Man, that's such a good question. I really think a team that we should all be looking out for is the Pittsburgh Pirates. Look, they're slowly building and building and building. They've got a lot of good young talent. We've seen them at their fullest, but now starting to build out this rotation with Skeens and Jared Jones. This is a really good team on paper. We'll see if these young guys can come in and execute, but it's a weak NL Central, like I said. And the Cubs were supposed to win it last year, and they ended up having not as good of a year as they were supposed to. The Brewers didn't have a great year last year, and they ended up winning it. And they got a lot worse, in my opinion, this offseason.
Well, they still don't have no hitting. That's their issue. It's
Yeah.
pitching and defense. They still can't hit the ball.
So I think this is a perfect opportunity for a young rising team like the Pirates or the Reds to come in and steal the division. But I think the Pirates, to me, look like a more complete team in the field. I think the Reds have the better rotation and maybe the better bullpen. But I'm still not set on all the guys that they've got playing in the everyday lineup.
I'll tell you this: the AL West, courtesy of some moves made by the Astros, just got a lot weaker. So, I mean, I think the Rangers keep wanting to have a great bounce back year. Wasn't a great, kind of had the World Series hangover, kind of.
Yep.
So they could have a good bounce back year. Although I will say, I can't call them Oakland anymore because, well, they're just the A's for right now, or the Athletics. They've got a lot of good young pieces. So they could be making it to where they could maybe somehow get close to the wild card race. I kind of hope they don't for obvious reasons and what they've kind of done there during their time to end it. But I think that AL West is so wide open. I mean, Houston could win it, but there's a part of me that also thinks Houston could lose like 80, 90 games this year, and
Yeah.
so we'll see there. But those are our little predictions for the MLB right now, and we gave our picks for March Madness. We're working on NFL free agency. I'm trying to wait. I'm really trying to wait on a certain team to fricking figure out what they're doing at quarterback next year. They're still not doing it yet. I don't know. We're probably going to plan for a free agency episode either next week or the week after because the NFL draft is less than a month away. So we got to get free agency in,
Yep.
even if a certain quarterback wants to take up the entire time before the draft, deciding if he's going to retire or go play for Minnesota and complete the Brett Favre career path. So
Yeah.
we'll see there. But that's going to do it for this episode. Enjoy Sweet 16 Elite 8 action this weekend, as well as opening day baseball. Enjoy it all. That's going to do it for us. That's Austin Hill. I'm Austin Wader. We want to thank you for watching.